Okay, so now we have a basic understanding of tools and materials. I'm going to show you now how we would wire a single pole switch. So what you're going to need is you're going to need your rectangular box. You're going to need a single pole switch. Again, it has the two poles, two terminals on the side, and two lengths of 14-2 wire. Okay, so you want to start with the cable strippers, and you can either measure down 6 inches, or I typically use my hand, and I go finger to thumb is around 6 inches. The accuracy at this point isn't critical. We just want to have enough wire to work with. So we use our cable strippers. We'll strip the cable sheathing on both. Okay. Now we peel back to expose the wires. I'm going to peel back here to expose the wires, and we're going to have roughly the same length and roughly about 6 inches. Use the side cutters. This becomes garbage, and now we have exposed wires. We'll grab our octagon box, and because this box is brand new, you actually have to open up the box, and we're going to open it up by getting rid of these little hole punchers. So we're going to open up one on the top and one on the bottom. Okay, and then inside we're going to actually shove our wire through the box. Continue to do that. You'll notice the wire starts coming out here. And we're going to shove it in such a fashion that you still have some white cable sheathing against the sheathing connector. Okay, this connector cannot be touching the bare wire. It has to be touching this white sheathing here. And then we'll do this exact same thing with this other piece of wire. And it does take a little bit of strength. You gotta push and pull a little bit to get that wire to come through. And there we're set up. Again, just enough cable sheathing to come through where the sheathing connector is. So now I focus on the ground wires. And the ground wires are what we call the bare wires. So get them in a position and sort of pull your other wires out of the way. And because the ground wires are now going to go down on these ground screws. Okay, so there's two ground screws. Depending on the box you use, they might be configured a little bit differently, but it's always these two ground screws. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to actually just take the ground wires and I'm going to wrap them around the ground screw, and then using my Red Robertson screwdriver, I've tightened those ground screw terminals down. So if we look inside, you'll notice that both those ground screw or ground wires, both those ground wires are now connected to the ground screws in the bottom of the box. With the remainder of the wire, you can either snip it off. For our exercise, I'm going to just tuck it down in the bottom. I'm just going to bury it neatly in the bottom of the box so that it's out of our way. Okay, so I've literally buried it in the bottom. You can cut it off, but then you don't have any wire to work with if you make a mistake down the road. So I just tuck it down on the bottom. So now the focus becomes our other two wires. You'll learn that power essentially comes through black wire, and the neutral wire, or the white wire, becomes what we call the neutral. So I'm going to focus on the neutral wire right now, and I'm going to grab the wire strippers, and I'm going to strip off about 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Okay. Using the wire strippers. And then we want to put a wire connector or a Murat on that. So we'll go back to the technique I showed you earlier with the lineman's pliers. We want to squeeze that nice and tight, and we want to trim the ends just to get things started well. And on goes the Murat or wire connector, again spinning it clockwise. It's nice and tight, and now we can actually tuck that wire down in the box. As well. Okay, so now we're left with the two black or the two power wires, and they're going to get connected to these two terminal screws on the switch itself. So back to the wire strippers, and we're going to strip off an inch to 3/4 of an inch. Okay, a bare wire, and we're going to put a nice tight curl on the end. Go around our terminals using the needle nose pliers. Okay. On the sides of these switches, you have to use what's the green Robertson. Okay, so you'll loosen each terminal. Okay, and then you can actually hook. Okay, I hooked one wire on here. I'm going to turn it and snug it up, and just snug it. You don't have to kill it, just snug it up. And then on the other side here, I'm going to put the other wire. You'll notice how I put it on. I have turned the loop, okay, in a clockwise rotation, because when I turn the terminal, it's going to spin clockwise, and that tightens everything up. You don't want to feed your wire on the other side, because that'll actually loosen it as you try to tighten it. Okay, so hook it on like so. Green Robertson again, and there we're all snugged up. Okay, so quick review there. You got the ground screws tightened in the bottom of the box. They're holding your ground wire, which has been tucked in. Now we've taken the white neutral wire, we've put a wire connector on it, we've tucked it in, and now we can take our black wire and we're going to tuck it in so that these screws here, okay, on the top and the bottom of the switch, they are actually going to get fastened onto the actual rectangular box. And you just snug this down using a green Robertson screwdriver. When you're done this exercise, you'll have hands like a ninja, because it is so much handwork. You'll get stronger fingers. And we're almost there. So a cover plate would go over top of that, but that is how you would wire a single pole switch.